here we go. Back again. Alright? And today, it is the None Previously Fought Syndrome. And this is the 14th episode of the Syndrome. And it has indeed, once again, been another busy week for the Syndrome. And as always, the deception, it continues. And this week, as we did touch on last Friday, NASA had a big announcement in regards to the moon. And I knew straight away it would be in the Syndrome, because the moon, our satellite, right, it has the Syndrome big time. And in July, more metal on the moon than previously thought. New study suggests. Right, so they thought they knew the moon, but they didn't. And again, in July the 13th, the year of deception, moon 85 million years younger than thought. Right, so they also used to tell us how old the moon was, but this year that's been blown out of the water. And then, speaking of water, would you believe it? 2 days ago, the big announcement, moon has more water than previously thought. Scientists say. Right, so it must be true then, if a scientist says it, yet the astronauts, they must have missed it, right? And what does it say? Well, this is exciting because the expectation is that any water present on a sunlit surface of the moon would not survive the lunar day. Paul Hertz, director of the Astrophysics Division at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C., said in a news briefing on Monday. Right, so yeah, they didn't think water could survive these harsh conditions that are on our moon, seemingly, right? The discovery has important implications for human exploration, especially as NASA aims to fly astronauts back to the moon in 2024. Wow, just in time then. Hertz said water on the moon could be used as a resource for astronaut crews or as fuel for expeditions travelling deeper into space, such as future missions to Mars. Right, so once again, it's about Mars and a mission to Mars. So basically, NASA will again be fleecing the American public, basically stealing their money for these so-called missions, right? And finding water will make the sheep cough up even more, most likely. But certainly not those who ain't fooled by NASA. But with that said, I suppose if you pay tax, you don't have much of a choice, because the government just take it and designate so much money, billions, trillions, to the likes of NASA, who are straight up criminals. And what we get from NASA is nothing but lies, and you really can't trust them one bit. And I mean, what is it really all about? Because who is sitting at home saying, oh, you know this, I really wish I could go to Mars, right? Said fucking no one ever. So yeah, I think we have a lot bigger problems to deal with than trying to get to Mars and wasting so much money and resources on a pointless fucking mission, when there are a lot bigger problems on Earth that we could be dealing with, right? So what is it all about? And I did say who would want to go to Mars, but I suppose with the year that we have had so far, quite a few people might be willing to make the journey, right? That wouldn't surprise me, because yeah, it's fucking tyranny central at the moment in a lot of places in terms of the lockdown. But sticking with the water, right, on the moon, it continues. Still, it's not yet known how accessible water is on the moon, even in sunlit areas. More research is needed. Cha-ching. So yeah, they will need more money. But Hannibal said it's possible that the water came from micrometeorites that slammed into the moon. Wow, the violent impacts may have encased the water molecules in tiny glass beads. Right, which could explain how they managed to survive in the moon's harsh environment. Right, so yeah, the super astronaut suits that they built was a complete waste of time. They should have just put the astronauts in wee glass beads and they would have been fine, right? And it continues, with a thick atmosphere, without a thick atmosphere, let's get it right, water on the sunlit lunar surface should just be lost to space, right? Hannibal said in a statement, yet somehow we're seeing it. Wow, something is generating the water and something must be trapping it there. Right, so look out for possibly in the syndrome or the future headline where they find what is creating the water and also probably an atmosphere or a thicker atmosphere than previously thought on the moon. Look out for it. So yeah, they do say that the moon doesn't have an atmosphere like Earth. So things like the American flags that the astronauts, our heroes, seemingly, Freemasons by the way, they seemingly left these flags, right, on the moon. But with the harsh conditions, you probably can't see them now. But they also say that it's too small to see. Yet we can peek into galaxies, far away galaxies, seemingly. And yeah, the galaxies, they have the syndrome as well. But as you can see, this is an artist's illustration of what the flag, the American flag that they left on the moon would look like today. But of course they can't show us a real photo because, like everything with NASA, it's a fake. It's an artist's impression. And speaking of fakes and NASA, as we have touched on before, well, what about these guys? The moon rocks that these astronauts took back from the moon. Yeah, they went to the moon, I believe, 7 times. So yeah, they picked up all these rocks and took them back to be examined. But when one of them got tested by a curious man, it turned out it was indeed a bit of petrified fucking wood, right? It wasn't from the moon, it was from Earth, and it was a fake, just like NASA, and indeed, in my opinion, the moon landing. Now, with that said, does that mean that we didn't go to the moon? I personally think we didn't, right? And again, in my own belief or personal opinion, I reckon what we got shown by NASA was complete and utter deception. And if you look at the documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, that exposes the moon landing as a fraud, a fake. And if you look at also the interviews that was carried out and done by the astronauts after they got back from the moon, that pretty much for me says it all. Their body language and facial expressions and how they answer the questions said to me that there really was a problem. But of course, if any astronaut spoke out, they got dealt with, right? That is for sure. So they would have known to keep their mouths shut and would have possibly even been under a form of MK Ultra. So they could have possibly, in their mind, actually believed that they did go to the moon. That is a possibility that we cannot write off the table. But again, I can't buy it. Everything I've seen in regards to the footage and the different documentaries, it doesn't sit well with me. It's a complete and utter fraud, really. And I do want to get stuck into the moon, and indeed NASA, because, yeah, they need exposing. They are straight up criminals, and all they have done is leech money from the American public and other space agencies. The European and the UK also have one, and India, whose poverty levels are eye-watering, yet they seem to think it's okay to spend billions on planning on going to the moon. Talk about priorities, right? But yeah, another wee story that I always remember about the moon. One of the astronauts, I can't remember his name off by hand, but he seemingly had a box of certain items in like a shoebox that he was taking to the moon, and he was going to leave it on the moon. And as far as we had known up until a point, that is what he done, until his wife was clearing out his bedroom cupboard, or one of them, and she found the box of items. So they never went to the moon, and neither did the fucking astronauts, right? Don't buy it. But anyway, we will leave the moon for the time being. But this is the syndrome, of course. So yeah, what else has been in the syndrome? Well, I'm pretty sure you can take a guess, because this, the myth, the spoof, the con, vid, has indeed once again been in the syndrome. Would you believe it? So what is it this time? Well, as you can see, Fox 11, Los Angeles, UCI study. So yeah, it must be real good stuff. COVID-19, 7 times higher in OC than previously thought. And this is a reoccurring headline. All you do is change the name of the town or city or county, and hey presto, right? It's the exact same right across the board. And this one, yeah, quite important. This one I thought, as you can see, 3 days ago, COVID-19 incubation period potentially much longer than previously thought. Right, so what is this then? Once again, they know nothing about the so-called coronavirus. And it says, initial estimates made during the early stages of the pandemic range from around 4 to 7 days. Right. However, numerous reports have since emerged, wow, estimating an incubation period of anything from 1 to 34 days. Right, not 33 days, but I guess if you take away the 1, then it is, right? Currently, governments are planning their mitigation strategies based on a maximum incubation period of 14 days. Right, now, Prakashini Banaka and Catherine Komisky, yeah, we'll go with that, have conducted a modelling study highlighting the variability in this period, including the potential for incubation that extends beyond 14 days. Surprise, surprise. An accurate estimate of the incubation period distribution for SARS-CoV-2 is essential for modelling the virus's spread and the effectiveness of control measures. Sure, right, you can see where it's heading, right? It continues. Banka and Komiski, or Komis, I don't know. I am honestly terrible when it comes to names. But hey, that's life, but not as we know it, right? But we'll try again, right? Banaka and Komiski warn that since the incubation period may be longer than initially estimated, detailed surveillance of self-isolation periods and other protective measures is now needed. Right, sure it is. Why not? Because of course everyone's dying and the hospitals, the bodies are piling up because yeah, it's a pandemic. Of course it is. But yeah, you can see where it is all heading, and they will indeed eventually begin to tighten the screw in terms of surveilling people who need to self-isolate, and in terms of the track and trace, they will indeed up the ante with that. But we will leave COVID for at least the time being. But yeah, like always, it will indeed be back in the news because, like I do say, the COVID is riddled with the syndrome. It's pure deception and manipulation, and that is the best way I can describe the pandemic. But just finally for today, another quite important or quite big one that's in the syndrome is these pesticides or insecticides, if you like weed killer. It's toxic. I actually have my tickets for weed killing because I was involved in landscaping for quite a few years, both domestic and industrial, and I always refrained from using any chemicals if possible, and I always advised anybody who had any questions on them to never ever use them. They really are dangerous fucking stuff. And yeah, surprise, surprise, it's back in the news, and it does indeed have the syndrome big time. And this is in terms of the chemical fipronil, I think is how you pronounce it. Fipronil, right? We'll go with that. But as you can see, 2 days ago, beyond pesticides, ecosystem killer, fipronil, more toxic than previously thought, found in waterways throughout the US. So as always, we're dead man fused with all these chemicals, and by the time it comes out, it's little too late, right? But then of course, they always come up with a new solution, a better option that always turns out to be 10 times worse. So what they saying about this? Well, if we look at some of the effects without going into it too much, right, without boring you, as you can see, the chemical also altered the time it takes for certain species to complete metamorphosis. Midges, which start their lives as aquatic invertebrates before metamorphosizing into flying adults, it delayed their transition by several days in every mesocosm containing higher concentrations of fipronil. Right, so as you can see, the effects of this stuff on the midges are not good, and that will indeed be the same for us, right? And it delays their growth, which would probably render them a useless adult, right? That's probably the case. And it doesn't stop there in terms of the effects, right? The unintended effects of these chemicals, sure. Beyond direct toxicity, introducing fipronil into the stream mesocosm ecosystem altered food web dynamics, initiating a trophic cascade. A trophic cascade occurs when a disruption, in this case a pesticide, significantly changes the behavior of or destroys certain populations of plants and animals, causing effects that ripple up and down the food chain. In this instance, fipronil harmed populations of insects known as scrappers, sometimes known as grazers, which include snails, other aquatic insects that feed on algae. Right, this results in a bloom in algae populations. Although fipronil is not a fertilizer, it nonetheless has the potential to indirectly, right, cause harmful algae blooms in US streams and waterways. Right, so this toxic chemical, even fipronil, it is severely dangerous, and it is killing off the snails and other insects where the concentration of this chemical is high, and in turn it is then destroying the natural food chain, because it is, of course, a trophic cascade. It's like a domino effect, and once you break the chain, it completely begins to break down. Right, and if it's doing that to the snails and the insects, what the fuck is it doing to us? Alright, anyway, that is about it for today. So thank you kindly to everyone that has subscribed, old and new. You truly are, and I genuinely mean this, you really are a fantastic bunch, and I really do appreciate it when you engage with the channel and show your support. It's great, and I really do enjoy engaging with other people, especially on these topics, because yeah, we are all in the same boat, and we really need to make a stand at some point. Anyway, I will catch you tomorrow with the Friday fix, and that is about it. Bye bye.